and my guest is on. Shaniel, how are you feeling?
Hi, Shakira. I'm great. Thanks for asking. And how are you?
I am doing good as well. I am doing good as well.
Awesome.
So let's find out who is this awesome woman with us here this evening. Shaniel Cowans is a hospitality professional with over 17 years in the broad scale industry experience and 6 years experience in the capacity of learning and development. So we have an expert with us, obviously. She has owned her skills and proactively led individual and organizational goals and objectives. The mix of skill set has allowed her to transition into the role of an international recruiter with Goodwin Recruiting. She's also a free-spirited lover of life and people, and her purpose is to volunteer and also, share knowledge as well as to help those around her to achieve more. It's a great place to have you right here at Minds of Jamaica, Shaniel.
Thank you, Shakira. Boy, I feel like a VIP and a star.
Well, of course you are, because I know you're going to be sharing lots of tips and nuggets over here. And the first thing I want to know is, what's the secret? I think everybody wants to know, what's the secret? What's the secret of getting the job? Like, that's what everybody wants to know. What are some tips that you could give us about getting the job?
You can take it from any route you want to, but the first and most important thing is to want the job. Make sense? You have to be that individual who is hungry. I'm not saying that you have to be the person that has all the requisite skills, because I strongly believe that you're never ever ready for a specific role, even though you may be trained in that area. All work environment, all job cultures differ. So when you get into a new environment, it's going to take some trial and error. It's going to take some learning on your part. So you have to be able to be that person to identify what you want, have a clear plan and objective, and you also have to be that person that wants to learn, because if it is that you are that person who has that blinder on, and then you are hit with some curveballs because life really does happen to you, and you're unable to, I would say, flex, be flexible, be able to adapt, then the reality is, no matter how trained you are, you're not necessarily going to be successful. So the most important thing is to, one, be hungry for that job. You have to also know the role, right? So you must know something about the role that you are trying to get into. You have to know about the company, and when I say know about the company, you need to understand if the company's culture aligns with who you are as an individual. Because if you are someone that appreciates work-life balance, or an environment that is a little more laid back, but you're going into a work culture that's fast-paced, high volume, has a lot of data-driven processes and procedures, then you're going to have an issue then. So it's all great and dandy to say, okay, I want the job, but you need to know. You need to know what you're going for, why you're going for it, and also ask for some help. I find that a lot of persons don't necessarily ask questions before they transition into a role. There's nothing wrong with informational interviews. Persons look at me weird when, I'll interview for a role and I say, well, who was the person before me? Is the person in the company? Did the person transition to a new role, or is the person no longer with the company? And if the person is not in the company, then, does anybody here have any contact? Can I reach out to this person?
Right.
So people look at me odd when I say that this is something that I like to do, because at the end of the day, if that person was before me, there is a strong possibility that there is something that I can learn from this individual. I mean, I could go on, you know.
And we want it. Trust me, I'm here writing it. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, very, very important. So we spoke about knowing where you're headed, where you're going to. You know, ensuring that it aligns with who you are, meaning your goals. You also want to think about the individual, yourself, who you are. Is it a situation where you are trying to, is it a means to an end kind of scenario, or is it a case where you are seriously thinking about your long-term goals, right, in this specific role? Because I you know, during my years of having conversations with individuals, be it that they're younger than I am or they're older than I am, I've observed that persons make decisions for now and they really don't think about the impact that this decision will have on their future or the lack thereof. I think time is way more important than money, because time can ultimately give you money or not. So if you want to, let's say, venture in the field of HR, and because of your circumstances, so let's just use that terminology, because sometimes you have to take on a job because you have no other choice.
Yes.
You want to save,
you need the money.
Correct, is right. But you also have to say to yourself, well, what in this specific role that I'm taking on now that I'll be able to use at a later date? What skills can I take up, and how can I apply myself in this specific role as a future budding, be it HR professional or project manager, whatever it is. And I think that a lot of us, even though we may take on a job because we need it, we don't look at it from that standpoint. So then this job now becomes, I would say, something that takes up time, serves a means to an end.
Yeah. But you're not passionate about it. You just go into the job every day and waiting for the 25th of the month to come. And you're just doing that cycle over and over and over.
And what you tend to find, if you do, you know, any research, you'll find that same mindset creates what we call workplace zombies. That same thing that you just described. So you started out hungry, you know that this is just a short-term thing, but because you didn't go in with a mindset that I'm going to cap this at a specific time frame, it's going to serve its purpose for here, and then I'm going to transition, we get lost in the system, you know. And because we weren't necessarily passionate about the specific role, but because it was simply a means to an end, we get lost. Then we start to question who we are, what is our purpose, you know, scenario tends to happen. And then the company also is affected in the long run, because they have on their hands people who don't necessarily want to be here, so they're
so they're not pulling their weight, and you know, the job is not done as efficiently as possible.
Correct, is right.
Yeah.
So a lot of it starts with who you are as an individual.
So wanting the job is so much, you know, it's not, trying to get a job is so much more than just wanting the job, as you put it out there. Yes, you have to be hungry for it, but you need to do your research as well. You need to know what the company culture is like, how long you plan to keep this job for. Don't go into interviews and just sit there. You ask questions as well. You know, a lot of persons in the interviews, I'm sure you've seen it in interviews where they ask, do you have anything that you want to ask us? And they say, no.
Right. I'm fine. I was that person. And I learned quickly that you never ever want to do this, because you really have an opportunity at that point to identify, you know, the persons that you're going to be reporting to, or the persons that you're going to be, you know, you have an idea of who they are based on what they say to you. But, you know, the good thing about what we're doing now is really showcasing some of, be it the myths or the pitfalls of our generation, and the fact that a lot of persons, let me not say all of us, a lot of persons did not have the necessary information, right, to let them know that when you're job hunting, or when you actually send through your resume and somebody calls you, they reach out to you, you have to start research. You have to start interviewing the company before you get there, because they're doing the same for you. They start doing their background checks. They start making their calls, you know. So it's a whole entire process. So why don't I want to do that too?
Exactly. You know, because you're not the only person that wants the job. The company also wants that role to be filled. And so don't just sell yourself short and just give it away and not actually research. I love those tips. I love those nuggets. I think we just started and I feel like we're at the end, but we're just starting. So if you're just joining in, we're just starting, and she just told us how to get the job. That secret that we want to know. And so something else that came to my mind when I thought about your profession was, what is there a specific type of character that recruiters look for? Is there sometimes a different, like a specific personality trait that stands out, or is that tied to a specific job? That sort of thing.
I would say yes and no. One of the things I've found is that any specific job function usually has a good mix of different personality traits. So you may be as assertive as they come, but there's going to become a point when you will have to be passive, you know. You may be an emotional and empath, but it's going to change. But what I will say is this: when interviewers have conversations with an interviewee, they're going to look at how you project yourself in that interview, right? So if it is that you're let's say, because my background has a heavy emphasis on the tourism industry, if you are coming in for an entertainment coordinator, which of course I was, there is no way that you can come into the interview and you are sitting down and you are calm, cool, and collected. Because an entertainment coordinator, as you see them, well, as a matter of fact, you don't even need to see them. You'll hear them.
You'll hear them.
They're loud and boisterous, but their personality illuminates a room, right?
Yes.
They have that gotcha aura about them. So if it is that you're going in for a role, you need to identify that this specific role requires an individual who is upbeat and tempo, and then of course their natural skill set, be it singing, dancing, acting. Those are good additions. Because I was an entertainment coordinator, I couldn't sing to save my life. I probably could dance ish. I was trained to become a voice. I was trained to act, to dramatize.
Yeah.
But it just goes to my point to say that the root of it all is who you are as an individual, and it has to definitely match the role that you're getting into.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yes.
Just as though you have to be a numbers person, you have to be that individual who is analytic, who likes problem solving.
True.
Who likes to break things down and decode things to, let's say, be an accountant, right? Or let's say to be a security manager, right? If you are the person who likes to finish products, you like the information, and then you can relate, then you would not necessarily do well in a job like accounting or security. But maybe you could be a sales manager. Maybe you could
See, I'm crossing it out and ticking and checking. I hope everybody is like, I'm like, okay, not accounting.
Maybe you could be a presenter, right? But there are just some core things that the recruiter is going to look for. Now, again, this has to be positioned by you, the individual, because the recruiter has a black and white. They have checklists that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And just as our recruiter will take literally 30 seconds and say, okay, this is not file 13, sorry, but that's just how it goes, because when you're looking at multiple resumes throughout the day, you have to be able to identify the good ones. And the good ones may not necessarily be the ones that are greatly structured, but it looks at the facts. what have you accomplished? You know, the KPIs of the specific roles, are those in line with what this current job is looking for? And then again, now there's the human element of it, which is what I mentioned before. Does your personality also align with the culture of the organization? So that's where the different questions come in. Now, the situation and the scenario types questioning. But I think every situation is unique, but those are some things that, you know, recruiters would look at.
Okay. So you touched on a key point, and I'm kind of like, and I see Camille having a question. KPIs, key performance index.
Key performance, yes. These are the things these are the measurable pointers to your job function. So at the end of a 3-month period, at the end of the year, these are the things that they're going to look at to see whether or not you were successful in the role. Did the department meet the sales target? Did the department generate the revenue that they were supposed to generate? Did we retain the amount of staff? You know, Camille said, I have to make sure we can keep up. So were we able, from an HR perspective, were we able to retain a certain amount of staff? You know, that because no employer wants to have high turnover, because at the end of the day, it costs, because you're gonna have to pay somebody to find the people if it's a high functioning job. Then to pay an external recruiter to find them, get them to you. You have to pay government if it's an expat, train, and if it's an internal, at the end of the day, 2 weeks of orientation procedure. They're sitting down for 2 weeks. They have to get paid for that training period. Then there is the onboarding, and then them gone again. The cycle continues. You cannot create workplace culture where that is concerned. So going back to the key performance indicator, these are the things that really make up the job and help you to measure the functionality of the job.
So I love how we touched that, and then you said that we should put that on our resumes, and you said something that stood out to me, because I always thought, let me tell you all a secret. My resume is probably the only pink resume that you will come across on your desk. So I thought, well, you know, I pop off, you know, that hot looking resume that stands out. But you just said that you're looking for the facts. And so what does a great resume look like?
So what you mentioned about the pink resume, that's going to tell me about your personality. It's going to tell me that, boy, she girly bad, you know. So it may pique my interest, but if it doesn't contain what we're looking for, you're in a role. You're in a specific role, and you're in that role for a specified period. What did you contribute to that function? Did you implement anything, right? Were you able to rise or decrease? So if it's a costing area, were you able to save the company any money? If it's a revenue generated area, were you able come here laughing at this evening, were you able to bring in any money? And if you were, what did you do, right? You know, if I also look out for the eyes. If the role requires camaraderie and requires synergy and collaboration, do I only see, when I look at your resume, I, or do I see collaboration? Do I see worked with? You know, do I see partnered with? You know, are those action terms and adjectives to describe what you do? So when I say facts, we're looking at things that can be quantified. So the percentage, and when you have that percentage on your paper, you best be able to explain how you arrived at that percentage in my interview, because then if you're unable to speak to it, then I'm going to say, but you lied, you know? So these are some things that I'm speaking about. Also, a great resume. So you talk about the numbers, you talk about the percentage. A great resume also looks at someone who's not a job hopper. And when I say job hopping, I mean, goes back to what I said earlier. If you're applying for a role, you need to know why you're applying for this role, or why do you want this job. Yeah. So
Yes.
6 months later, you're jumping from one job, then a next job, then a next job. When you send your resume to me, you may be a great candidate, you know, but because you have that job hopping mentality, and sometimes you may get your foot in, someone may want to talk to you just to ask, why is this so? And it goes back again to sometimes we just don't know, and we're trying to find that right place. So again, this is a very good program because it is now allowing, if I were someone who was ignorant to all of this, to know that going to an employer to work for 6 months and say, boy, can't bother with this and I gone, you know, or this doesn't align with me and I gone. I would say sometimes suffer in the minute, because if not, your resume is going to have you suffer in the long run.
Yes.
Right? So when you're able to show that you're not a job hopper, meaning you don't have very short stays in an organization, it shows loyalty. Yeah. It shows that you're committed. It shows that you're able to get along with people, because if you're able to get along with people, then you're going to realize that you're going to want to go to work, so you're going to be there for an extended period of time. Yeah.
I never even thought about it. I start at the end before I go back to the top, where it shows that you will work well with people. I never thought about that at all. As you can say, if I think my resume presents as a job hopper, is there a way for me to add explanation on the resume itself? So say, okay, you know, 6 months at Grace, then you had 4 months at Lasco, then you had another 6 months at KPMG.
Okay, so if you are a freelancer, right? If you are a project manager, there are some key functions that comes with a specific time frame or period. It explains itself. But if the roles do not necessarily align to project management, a term where a contract starts and ends at a specific time, then what you will find is it's harder for you to explain at that point in time. But if you can have I would say a note at the end of your bulleting points to say why I guess you would have transitioned. But if you have to spend the time to explain why, you tell me, Shakira, why how would you explain that?
I don't know.
It is still not a good look. Yeah,
you know, it's just it's not a good look.
Exactly.
The key lessons, you know, just to learn from, especially as persons, Gen Zs, that's where we're at now, and Gen Zs want the big picture now. Spend some time with the job. Try not to, you know, hop from one job to our next so quickly. You know, what's a good time span to spend? What are they looking for? Like a year, 2 years, 5 years?
A year. They consider job hopping, but you know, 2 to 3 years is a sweet spot.
Okay,
it is a sweet spot. You spend 6 months under a year, and then every year you change a job.
Yeah.
Then think about this.
Yeah.
When you get into a role, right? You're an employed individual. The first 3 months, someone asked a question about salary, so just
man, I saw it. So I'm gonna
when you get into a job function, the first 3 months of your employment is specifically geared towards learning the culture of the organization, understanding your role, how your role mixes with everything and everyone. You're also trying to find yourself. You know, you're trying to get your voice in as well. So the next 3 months after that is you really showing what you're made of. No, I am not saying that all roles are like that. The traditional functionality of a job, when you think about the timeline, is 3 months onboarding, recruiting, hiring, training, assimilation. After that period, then you're cementing yourself as an employee, then you're taking up all the benefits that are there for you. with the medical insurance, etc. If your job comes with that, and then after that, it's really just showing what you're made of. That's taken into account, right?
Okay.
So that is why I'm saying, if you're in a job under a year, if it's not a specific job that has key performance criteria based on the timeline, usually 6 months is a short period for you to stay in a job. You wanna extend that time.
Okay. So just a few key points I just want to bring up before we head to that salary question is that, use up those keywords in the resume. So you're showing that you have increased X by X percentage, yada, yada, yada. And you're not just putting where you work. A lot of persons have the thing to say, okay, I work here and I'm in that position and then skip to the next. You want to put, something there, some meat there to say, this is what I did while I was in that capacity. All said by Shaniel with the great nuggets.
And just a quick interjection there. How you can actually identify with the role if you're not too sure what are the key performance indexes of that specific role.
Yes.
You have job descriptions that are on a lot of job boards out there, be it the ZipRecruit, the Indeeds, CaribbeanJobs.com. If you're able to look at those and see the different functions that a specific role or the person who's going to perform the role is required to perform,
Yes.
As to how to point your resume.
Key points. That's great as well. All right, so I want to get to the salary question before we get more questions because the questions are popping. Today is popping. This nuggets on top of nuggets on top of nuggets. I mean, wow. Salary. Is that a question that we can ask? Like, I know that nobody really wants to say, so how much money you pay me? But is there a way where we can like, put it in the conversation in the interview? How best can we do that?
Usually we would wait two things. Every interview is unique, but the rule of thumb usually says that that's not a question you ask in the initial interview because a lot of interviews usually have series, so there can be 2, 3, 4 interviews. So at what point do you ask this question, right? So if it's the final leg of the interviews, you've gone to interview 1, interview 2, interview 3. At this point, you're now becoming a little bit comfortable with the organization. You realize that they have interest in you. You can risk it in the final interview because at that point you would have been having open discussions with the persons that are doing in the interview. But for the most part, we want to leave it. We want to leave it to the interviewers to venture down that path because if they're going to give you the job, they'll have to share with you the salary scale. For the most part, they'll probably ask you what you're expecting, and we normally say you don't give a flat figure, you give a range, and this again is key because you want to know what this job function is paying in the market, and you want to look at it locally, and you also want to compare it internationally. And if you're able to do that, then you're able to look at your skill set, your years of experience, what value you're going to bring to the table, and then at that point you're able now to make a more informed decision as to the range you want to give. Because if you give a flat figure, if I tell you I want $2 and you're going to pay $3 or $4, if I ask for 2,
you're gonna give me 2.
Okay, because every company is all about saving funds, right?
Right.
Exactly. So you don't want to make it seem as though when you ask the question up front about money, a lot of persons may think that that's your main motivator. Maybe a turn off, and you don't want to. You don't necessarily want to have that, feeling left in their mouth. But I think again, when you think about the landscape now, you have every other individual that I speak to. They'll ask you, where's the job located? And this again is dependent on what I'm doing now. Where's the job located? What's the name of the company? Because we don't necessarily give you all of that right away. But on the other side, if you apply to a company, you know who you're trying to get, which company you're trying to get to. You may just not know the salary scale. You you must do some research about them. So you want to wait a little.
Okay. So not the first, but probably the second or the third, like the follow-up interviews would be more wiser to kind of.
The third would probably be the final. And again, I don't think you want to be the person to raise the scale. But again, depending on how the conversation is flowing, you may have an opportunity to ask that specific question.
Right. Because you don't want to seem like you just want the job for the money. I mean, yes, we have to get paid. I mean, you need money to survive. But I guess companies are looking for persons that actually want to be here, actually want to assist the company to grow, maximize profit, that sort of thing, and not just pocket and go home.
But what you realize, the higher you go, the higher the expertise. Up front, that may be a discussion, because that's I would say an attracting statement. So when jobs are being posted, then they're going to state what's the rate that the company is being paid. So if I'm going to leave, if I'm an executive and I'm going to leave my role, then there are some things that would definitely have me think about it. One is the perks, the benefits, and ultimately what would be the overall money that I'm going to take home. So the higher you go, it changes somewhat.
That makes sense. Okay. So, as we climb the ladder, we get some more leverage. So that's good to look forward to. I saw a comment saying that, salary jumping, especially, not salary, but job jumping or changing jobs often allows to maximize salary. I think a lot of young people, that's something that I've heard also. Jump from job, increasing salary. Hey, next job, I know my money gonna get bigger. All right, we spend a little time here. Next one, they have to pay me more than what they were paying me before. What's your thoughts on that? And I know it kind of affects that the resume looking, jumpy, like you just keep hopping.
So again, all right, there are some fields, for example, the IT fields. I see Camille using some words. So if you're gonna ask what the salary is, you're gonna ask what is the salary range for this position. Yes, Camille, you can ask that. That's how you can position it. If in an IT world, those highly skilled areas that are always are often sought after. As I said to you before, it does allow for some opportunity to move, because that skill set may be rare, that skill set may be high on the market and may be needed. Because sometimes these roles are unicorn roles, they are so hard to find. For example, a website marketing manager. So you're not only a marketing manager, but you are a website developer. So you mix those two functions together. You have to be able to build website landing pages. You have to be able to maintain a certain amount of landing page. You have to, understand UI, UX, Google Analytics, all of those different terminologies. And please do not ask me, because I am not a techno baby.
That's fine.
So if with those jobs combined, that's a rarity. That's a function that's a rarity, because this individual can do so many different functions. They can do web designing only. They can do straight analytics. It's just a whole jam-packed job, right? And this person has the ability to move around as they see fit, because companies are always going to look for them. So they may not necessarily be the person looking for the job. So I always tell people, one size can't fit everybody. So even though we're speaking and we're talking about the general rule of thumb, there are going to be exemptions, right?
Yes.
That's why I alluded even to executives and talking about the money from the get-go, because an executive don't want you to waste them time. They're not going to go through an interview. They don't know what is the benefit and what are the perks. But not every job function has that ability, right?
Yes.
So going back to Kamira's point, when you are in those fields, yes, you do have the opportunity to do the job jump. Again, when you're in certain roles that are only project-based, you're going to be job jumping. That's just the nature of your job. So it doesn't mean that you're not committed. It doesn't mean that you can't fit into a specific role. If you're a freelancer, I hire you for a specific, and you're gonna also have overlapping. That's the next thing. So you'll be working for 2-3 different companies
at the same time. Yeah.
You know, place some perspective on things for you.
That sounds good. So you dropped some really great you dropped some really great points, Shaniel. You know, I'm not even taking on Camille, you know.
I'm sorry.
But I want to talk about you for a second. How did you get into the field of recruiting? Was it what you always wanted to do?
Oh boy. You know, sometimes when I get asked about my professional journey, I don't even know where to start. So recruiting is the end because this is where I'm at currently. But initially, growing up, I wanted to become a teacher, die-hearted teacher, because number one, I love talk. Number two, I love to impart knowledge. You ask me one question, and before you know it, it's a learning lesson. My daughter says to me, "Mommy, is this another learning moment?" And each time we talk, a learning moment. So there's someone online that just says, "Tell us," and he knows where I'm going. So CJ, hi. So CJ actually was my first ever manager, and so people look at me and they're confused because I started out in the hospitality industry as an entertainment coordinator, and that I think was probably just fate, because I didn't apply for that role. I had a friend that was working at Sandals Montego Bay. She invited me down, and maybe in me a fast. I like to know, I like to be involved in things, and me just jumping in as a total stranger. Of course, CJ had to approve it because I was not CJ, you can't get in problems for this, so I can talk now. He had to approve me.
Tell us, man. Tell us.
He had to approve.
We want to know.
Participating in different initiatives. They had productions, all of that jazz. And I remember when I went, it was close to Halloween. You know, I come from country Clarendon, and I don't know anything about Halloween. I may have heard about it, but when I went, they were doing this huge production. They were decorating, spraying, rehearsing, makeup, costume, all of it, and I was just so fascinated. Anyways, I went home, and they also had an awesome hotel manager at that point, and he called me up when I got home back in country, and he says, "Hey Shaniel, what do you think about working for us?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I had to say, "Blank kidding me." So I thought it was a prank, and he says, "Shaniel," and I said, "Yes, sir." No, this is the entertainment part of me coming out, yeah?
I see it.
So, you know, Mr. Robbins, God bless his soul, he's somewhere in Miami, I believe, managing Margaritaville. So that was it. That was how my stints in the hospitality industry started. I started as an entertainment coordinator. As I said, couldn't dance to save my life, but I had CJ at the helm, and he was not about to make me fail. Had 2 left feet, hours on end trying to learn dance moves, because when you go out on the floor, no other hotel, nowhere, anywhere can top Sandals Montego Bay. So we just want to go. So, you know, I did that for 2 years. Then I got a scholarship while I was there. I transitioned from entertainment coordinator with the role entertainment coordinator, which was just an amazing time. You feel as if you're working, but you never work a day in your life. 16, 18 hours a day. And it just felt as if you were just playing, because we had a very tight-knitted family working together, and we are still close today. We're still close. So we transitioned into front office. That was probably about a month. Then from there, I was selected to start concierge. And for those who don't know concierge, the hospitality industry as it relates to service is broken into 3 tiers. You have the entry level, or the standard, we call it. That's the front office guests. These are the persons that tend to do things for themselves. If they want to book tours, they have to go to the desk and book the tours. From there, we move on up. We go to concierge. So these are a little more luxury. So these are the clients that are a little more spoiled. They like the nicer things in in life. Yes, they pay a little bit extra for the better rooms, the better views of that jazz. And then you now have to be a very polished individual who understands what the hospitality industry is about. And you have to be passionate about people and customer service. So that transitioned me into the final level, which would be butler service. Now, when I went into it wasn't big in Jamaica, but I'm pretty sure if you were to talk to anybody now in the hospitality industry, they'll tell you about butler service. Now, this is a $10 service. Everybody wants to become a butler. But they want to become the butler for one thing and one thing only. It's not about the service because you attack you money off.
The tips.
So you will go home as a butler with more money than a manager if you're a great butler. I'm not joking. So I transitioned from there. So through one of the things that I think was identified about me early on is my ability to lead and my ability to care for persons and my ability to impart knowledge. So with every function that I've gone into, there was always someone coming in or a new employee that was placed under my arm and I had to show them the ins and outs. So when I think about it, I look back and I say, though I was not a traditional formal teacher, right? I was a teacher in itself. And you know, education takes place formally and non-formally. So I was still teaching. So moving from there, I was chosen to become a part of management training program. So this is where they would have opened the application for the first of its kind. A rigorous training program that was open to public.
Shaniel, you're a bit low. I don't know if it's the net, but you're a bit low.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfectly.
No idea why. So I'm giving it the long end of things because it can only make sense to you if I give it the longer end. So I was chosen for the management training program. I trained in that role where I was exposed to all facets of the hospitality industry. So I can make a bed and I can make the mitre for the bed. I can clean the bathroom if you need me to. I worked in the bar, I did engineering. So just about all the various areas, I was a part of that. Now, from there, you were there in that role for a few years, and at the final leg, you were asked, what area do you want to specialize in? And of course, that was a no-brainer for me. I like to share, I like to impart knowledge, and I selected training and development at that point. So when you're a part of the, and I said it was the closest thing to becoming a teacher anyway. So you know.
Yes, that's true.
So I did that. And it goes back to the point that I was making, a while back. In everything that you're doing, how does it align to, what your true calling is? What you really want.
The end goal, the main goal.
Correct. So though I would have wanted to go back to school, because of my financial constraints, I knew that the best thing for me to do was to continue working. Now, the hospitality industry is a little bit hard to navigate, to go to school and to work, because it's a job. It's one of the only jobs I know that takes from you physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you have to be very strong to work in the hospitality industry. Thank you, CJ. That's my manager. So I still call him my manager, but he's like a father. So I'm not saying old. So I chose training, and with training, you work alongside the human resource department. So we were married. So though it was two separate departments, we were married. So whatever HR did, I did. Whatever training did, HR did. So we were never ever separate, even though the job functions differ. So HR would do the recruiting, hand the team members over to me, and then they would now become my with my role to create a pathway.
Continue, right? It's coming.
As the learning and development manager, create a pathway for this employee, for them to see their future in the hospitality industry and for them to grow. So be it training, be it pairing them with someone, that we think aligns with who they are and what they want to do in the end. So it's a lot at that point in time. So how I got to recruiting now, I transitioned from the hospitality industry last year. Still love it, but because of personal reasons, and then the opportunity presented itself for me to join Goodwin Recruiting, amongst other things. So here I am.
And it just meshes because I saw how, you know, training and development liaised with HR, and they did the recruiting, and then they passed them over to you. So everything just came full circle for where you are right now.
But I like to show off on the HR managers, because I like to say that a trainer can become an HR manager like that, but an HR manager cannot become a trainer, because a training and development manager is a psychologist, is a doctor, is a lawyer. We do everything. So we are the persons in the companies, whatever the organization is, that is able to look at an employee and identify that something is wrong. That's what we do. We are the persons that look at an employee and realize that you came in as this, but this is not where you are meant to be. So what are we now going to do to move you from here to there? You know, we are the persons that are going to look at a team member and recognize their lack and create a plan with the team members' approval, and of course buy in to get them to the next level or the next stage. If it's an HR functionality, because disciplinary hearings, etc., we're going to be a part of that as well. So when you are a trainer, you can easily transition to become a human resource professional as well. But in the whole grand scheme of things, learning and development is an HR profession.
Listen, I am so happy you came on this evening. I know everybody in the chat is excited, loving the story so far. Great job, Miss Cowans. You know, claps and everything. But it's the deep knowledge that you're sharing right now that is just so important, because I did not know that the training and development manager did all of that and could easily be transitioned into HR. Because growing up, you learn about, okay, HR, human resources, okay, I'm going to go study HR management or something like that, and you leave out that key part, that key function, the learning and development management, because we think it's you know, like what you said, like teaching, but it's so much more than that. And I'm so happy that you were able to share your story and let us know and inform us, educate us on what it is that the training and development manager is doing and how they can easily fit into an HR role, but HR can't fit in over here. I hope nobody on the line is in HR.
Everybody, I said so.
Yes.
It is a versatile role. And the funny thing is, in the hospitality industry, it requires so much more too, because as a learning and development manager, you have to be an operations manager. And what I mean is, you have to know the ins and outs of that hotel that you're working, or that resort that you're working in, because how are you now going to correct an employee when you don't understand anything about the bar? How are you going to talk to an employee about chemicals if you don't understand the chemicals that they are using, right? There's no way you can come to me as an employee and talk to me if you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to tell you that you are not qualified. Nicely, I'm going to tell you to speak to me on this matter, because I'm the subject matter expert. Now, I'm going to be very, 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 very respectful in sharing that, but that's the point I'm going to get across. So what I'm getting at here is the learning and development manager is so much more than people know, and there's so much noise that needs to be made about this specific function, because we are like the jelly between your bread.
Can't eat dry bread, you know, you need the jelly.
Managers, employees, training managers, right? So we pull it together and make sure that they understand each other, make sure the communication aligns, so that the job can be done.
Listen, I'm put on my other camera, I'm entertaining. I'm glad I come out tonight. God no.
Come to party.
What? I'm glad I come out. Everybody in the chat, if you're glad they come out tonight. Just give me some fire. Give me some fire in the chat. So much that I'm learning, and I love that you're sharing, and you're sharing so authentically that we are just soaking up everything. So thank you. I have one last question. Just one last question. I love to say this to people just in case they didn't know. So you've made it now. It must be like magic, guys.
Hey.
You climbed up the ladder. Congrats to you. You are in fact a successful Jamaican story. That's why you're here. That's why we're sharing. What would you say to little Shaniel, who didn't even see this coming for her? What would you say? And as you're speaking to little Shaniel, you know, think about it as speaking to any little girl, any young girl on the live right now that need a little motivation, because Jamaica rough, Jamaica hard, and to make it's so difficult.
I would say a few things actually. Trust the process. That's one. Number two, don't do it alone. Just as take dance classes. Don't do it alone. For a very long time, I held on. I allowed fear, I would say, to hold on to me, and I was really scared of owning my voice. Right? Be that person in the room to raise your hand and ask the question that you think everybody is going to think that is a stupid question. Ask it anyway, right? Be that sponge. Anywhere that you go, soak up the water. But when you soak it up, make sure you don't wring it all out. Don't stay dry. There is a lesson in every single encounter, be it with a person, be it if you give. I remember I did an interview once. And I thought I prepared for the interview. I really did. And when I went into the interview, I recognized that, hey, I know I can do the job, you know, but I just was not prepared for the interview. And I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I felt hurt. You know, all the negative thoughts and feelings that you can think about. That was just, it sat on me for months on end, and it really started to just impact who I was as an individual. I started to feel dull. Because here it is that you're pumped up and you know that you can do this, and then you go and you blow it, right?
Yeah.
So in that, I had to talk myself out of it. But the message I want to say is there's a lesson. So from that day that I recognized I needed to take a lesson from it and not cost myself.
Yes.
I made sure that I looked at interviews totally different. And no one interviews me anymore. I interview them. And that's a lesson for me. So ask questions. Don't stay in your little corner and think that you don't have a voice or nobody's going to listen to you. Somebody is there who wants to hear what you have to say, or someone is there who's willing to give you the guidance. Just ask, right? And it's okay to be you. You know, I struggled at one point because I was the country bumpkin and I never wanted to stay in country. And I think God heard that, and that's why he allowed that opportunity to open for me in Montego Bay, because my community was just quiet. Love it. Quiet little country area. But it was just flat.
Yeah.
There's nothing happening around, and I know that would just kill my soul.
Yes.
So put whatever you want out there in the universe, in the atmosphere, and talk about it, because somebody's going to hear you. Don't just stay in a little corner, because you stay in there, that's where you're going to stay. So step out, and when you step out with grace, step out with fear, and be big, bad, bold you. Nobody is you. Nobody.
I think that's such a powerful... Hold on, I heard you coming saying something else.
I was just saying that the fact that no one is you is actually your superpower, because you can do the same thing that someone else is doing, do it different, because each of you have a different mind.
Can we just make that simmer? Just for a little bit, just simmer for a little bit. Such a powerful note to end on. No one is you, and that is your superpower. Like, there's nobody like you. And I love what you just said. Step out and be big, bad, bold you. 3 B's we're taking away. Big, bad, bold you. No one is like you, and that's a superpower.
Right.
Your story was so amazing, Shaniel. I can't find words to express, and I know everybody in the chat is letting you know. Career said we can do the interview tomorrow again. That's literally how great it was, and it was great because of you and you being able to share your story just like how you did, and we appreciate it so much. It's still coming like I forgot have it back again. I don't know.
For a part two.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions in the chat? If you do have any questions, this is your chance to ask. This is your chance to ask. If you have any questions, this is your chance to ask. I see everybody in the chat. Good stuff. Loved it. It felt like I learned a lot. So inspiring and inspiration on so many levels.
Trust me. You know, there is no straight. There's a point that I want to make. Life does not have a straight line. And I think that is what hits a lot of us a lot of times. We are so focused on the end goal that we forget all of the steps before we can get to the end. You're going to meet persons, especially if you're a young person. You're going to go into organizations and you're going to have some mentalities and personalities that are sharks. You better learn how to swim. But when you meet those personalities, just swim graciously. Right? Never stop swimming. You're going to have individuals who you looked up to that you thought would have been there to guide you, and they let you down. And at the end of the road, there's going to be someone else there. And sometimes it's just a situation where you need to dig deeper in you, for you kind of situation. You're going to have a lot of tests and trials. Never give up. And I'm saying this because going back to the question you asked me, I remember I used to go to school and I would work, and I would travel from Ocho Rios to Montego Bay. Those times I never used to drive, and I would leave work and I'd get to school in at UTEC for 5:30, and I'd travel back down on bus to Ocho Rios, and I'd have to go back to work the next morning, and I did it for 5 years. There was a point when I was transferred to Negril. There was a point when I was transferred to Montego Bay to White House, and I was still going to school, and it was my money, so I couldn't fail my degree.
Yeah.
And nobody in the workplace is going to be there fully to hold your hand oldly, because there's so many other persons that need support, right? So you're gonna also have to develop a little backbone for yourself, as nobody's gonna hand it to you only.
I love that. I have one question in the question Q&A. What kind of degrees or training is needed to work in this field, is needed to work in HR?
In human resources, you have, well, your degree can be human resource management, first and foremost. And then there are other institutions. In Jamaica, we have HERMAJ. So that's an association that you can be a part of, and they provide ongoing support and they provide ongoing trainings that will help you on certifications. There's also an international body called SHRM. Yes. So that also provides you. So it's like CPA for accounting, or ATD for learning and development managers. So they'll provide different trainings for different aspects of HR. And when I say different aspects, I mean you have HR, you have benefits, you have compensation, you have recruiting. So there are so many different facets of HR, because you can be an HR generalist, and you can be someone that focuses solely on one specific area in HR. Yeah. But your first degree can be business management focus, but you also want to make sure that it has the HR component, because in order for you to do this, I know companies do require you to understand HR in depth.
In depth. That sounds good. not seeing any more questions, but again, if you do have any more questions, you can always feel free to follow Shaniel over at her page, Compass Path Consulting, and be sure to ask your questions there, or also reach out on the Minds of Jamaica page with your questions, of course. If you're not following Shaniel, go over and follow, as well as if you're not following Minds of Jamaica, just hit that follow button right there. And if you haven't signed up on the Minds of Jamaica platform, be sure to check it out. The link is in the bio. This is what we do. We mentor, and so as Camille says, you can also reach out to Shaniel on the Minds of platform, because she is a mind here at Minds of Jamaica. And so be sure to check out our platform and sign up if you haven't signed up. If you want to be mentored by one of our minds, this is a great place to start your career journey. So feel free to check that out after the live. I want to thank everyone for coming on and staying with us. We've been here for 1 hour, y'all. This is the longest one ever. And it was great. So great. I want to thank everybody for staying on with us. And I want to thank Shaniel so much for sharing once again. And I'll see you next month.